Hey, fellow coaches. I'm Andrew Broders. I'm an assistant basketball coach at Waverly High School, and welcome to my Huddle Chalk Talk. My main role as an assistant is scouting our opponents. So I do the majority of our scouts throughout the season. One of the key features of Huddle that I use when scouting is creating playlists of those teams I'm scouting. And when I'm creating those playlists, the main thing I'm looking for is specific set plays. And it gets even more specific because at Waverly, we play primarily a 2-3 zone on defense. So I'm looking for a lot of sets versus a 2-3 zone. So we'll take a look at a game from last year. So this is our district final game when we're getting ready to play Scotts Bluff. So for playlist, for me as an assistant coach, I use them a ton for scouting. And I'll go through and I'll watch almost every single game that they play throughout the season. And I'm looking for teams that play a 2-3 because we play a ton of 2-3 defense. And I'm looking specifically for set plays against a 2-3. And once I find that set, I'll create a clip within the video player, and then I'll share that clip or clips to a playlist, and I'll just title that playlist, Scotts Bluff Scout or whatever team you're playing. That way it's easy to find inside your video library. And then once I get the entire playlist created, it's easy to share with my fellow coaches. It's easy to share with all of our players if we want to do that. And so we can really visualize what we're talking about in practice. So for this first one here, the first thing you really notice about this play is their point guard isn't bringing the ball up the floor. So it kind of gives you a hint right away. You can see number 25 is bringing the ball up the floor. Number 13 is our point guard. So if we ever see him line up on the right wing, we got to anticipate this play call is coming. So what they're going to do is they're going to come through and they're going to set a high ball screen to get the action started. When we see this, we got to have our number 22 right here. So this top guy in the 2-3, he's got to sink into this gap. The reason for that is number 13 is their leading scorer, and he has a real nice floater. So we don't want to give up this gap right here and let him shoot this floater because he shoots it at a pretty high percentage. He shoots about 50% when he gets into that spot right there. So we'll give out this kick out 3 to number 22, who's a less than 30% 3-point shooter. So especially playing zone, you got to give something up. We're going to give up a 3 to number 22. The second part of this play is number 50. He's going to start to loop around, and he's going to set a little pin down right here for number 25 flaring out to the corner. Number 25 was their best 3-point shooter. He's a really good spot up 3-point shooter. So we kind of got to anticipate this coming here. So here he comes. He kind of loops it down. They run this really well, and they get a wide open shot right here. How we're going to guard it is once they throw this, our bottom forward down here has to know this is coming and has to get around the screen. It's a requirement, and we want him to get around it, and he wants to go around the baseline side of it. Because if he goes around it to the high side, and then Scotts Bluff guy, number 25 here, if he drives baseline, then they have a 2-on-1 against our middle guy, and that's not going to end well for us. So anytime for our 2-3, we always want to close out butt to baseline. We constantly talk about our forwards with that butt to baseline. That way we can push everyone back to the middle because that's where our help is. All of our help is back to the middle. So he's got to close out on the baseline side here. If he drives it, he's going to force him back to the middle then. Their guy gets there a tad late. They end up missing the shot, but we want to cover it better than that because there's a good chance if we play them, he's going to be able to knock that down. The last thing about this, if we rewind it real quick, is our middle guy in the 2-3. So it's number 24 for this team. He's got to stay nice and low here. He can't creep up too high because if he does that, number 50 might pin him. So when he gets to this next level, he might pin him up high, number 25, and have a little duck down right there real quick. So he's got to stay nice and low. And that way, if he shoots this, then we're in rebounding position. We really want to think about what we're seeing and we need to apply it. So if you see something on film, we need to apply that into practice, and then we need to apply practice in the games. So I think a lot of it starts with video of what you're seeing on film, and then you have to apply that into practice first. and then apply it to a game. You can't just see it on the film and then expect to apply it straight into a game if you haven't practiced it. The best teams, I always feel like, have great practices, and when they have great practices, they have great games. So we really preach that. We have really hard, intense practices. I think that's helped our program kind of take it to the next level. Is every single year I've been at Waverly, this is my 4th year now, our practices get better every single year, and our program has gotten better every single year. And I think those two go hand in hand. Usually the better prepared team is going to win that basketball game, unless there's a huge, talent division. Like, you still got to have talent to win. Don't get me wrong. But usually if you got an evenly matched team, the better prepared team is going to win that basketball game, that football game, that volleyball game. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing. So I feel like if, right now we've got one loss on the season, and the one loss we had, we got done with that game. And I literally said to myself, I was like, we weren't ready for that game. Us as coaches did not have our kids ready for that game. And we took an L. We lost by 20. We played that same team the next week. We went out and we won by 8 because we did a better job in practice that week. And we got our kids ready. And we got a W. We actually don't have a specific stat we drive to hit every single game. I know a lot of programs do that, and I definitely respect that. We just haven't implemented that into our program, and maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. Right now, we don't. On the scouting side of things, I do use stats a ton. So I'll kind of take you through what that looks like for me when I'm scouting a team here. So hop over to reports. So one of the main things is, when I'm scouting, I always have several different tabs open. So I always have my library tab open with my playlists or my actual game. And I always have a reports tab open, because a lot of times as I'm watching film, if I see a kid make a 3, I'll hop over to the stats real quick, and I'll use the stats to acknowledge, like, okay, is that like 1 in a million chance, or is it pretty consistent? And so as I kind of watching more film, I can really use the film and the stats to put the two pieces together and make the full story then. So I'll do that a ton, and always have two tabs open there. For stats, I almost always use, probably 75% of the time, I'm always looking at athlete specific stats. The reason for that is team stats in general don't tell me how to beat a team. So for example, you look at a team stat, they shoot 40% from 3 as a team. That does not tell me how I'm going to beat that team from stopping them from shooting 40%. I need to know who specifically shoots really well, because there could be a kid that shoots, 50%, and there's a kid that shoots 30% or 20%. That's a huge difference right there. Like, I need to guard the kid that's shooting 50% from 3. Like, that's pretty legit. The kid that's shooting 20% from 3, we're not going to guard him as much. So that's why I always look at athlete specific stats, because I find them a lot more valuable of getting W's at the end of the day compared to team stats. Obviously, I go straight to points per game. Fairly obvious one. You need to know who can score. At the end of the day, you can't win a basketball game if you can't score. So I'll filter right away who's their scorers. And a lot of times I'll go to the stats before I even start watching film to give me a little general background of things that I need to look for. So I'm going to look for the best scorer. Be like, okay, it's number 13, Josiah. Second leading scorer is number 25, Dawson. So as I'm watching film, I'm going to watch those two specifically a lot more and figure out how they're getting their buckets. A couple of other things I look at is, okay, they're getting 20 a game, they're getting 15 a game. How are they getting those points? So Dawson, he shoots 7 threes a game, so he shoots the 3 ball a ton. We'll go up to their twos. How many twos are they taking? So like, Dawson takes 7 threes a game, he only takes 6 twos. So he takes more 3-pointers than twos. So he really likes that 3-point line. So we're going to have to drive him off the 3-point line and really close out hard on him. I find steals really important, because steals lead to points off turnovers. And if you give a lot of points off turnovers, you're probably not going to win that basketball game. So it's really nice that all these stats are connected to video. So you can click on this, and it's going to pull up a playlist of every single steal they had throughout the season. Another really important thing to do is have Huddle assist and break down as many games as possible. So for Scotts Bluff, this team right here had 22 games of them broken down. That's 22 games worth of data. That really lets the data work itself out, because if you only do 3 to 5, you might have a couple of outlier games where one kid shoots really well for 1 or 2 games. You're like, oh man, that kid can really shoot it. But actually, you get through 20 of those games, the averages really start to play itself out. And he goes from being a 40% 3 point shooter down to a 25% 3 point shooter. So the more data you can get on a team, I find that super valuable. And all of that work starts way ahead of time, because you only get 3 games per 24 hours. You need to start submitting games, especially towards the end of the season, at least 2 weeks ahead of time, because you're going to start your scouting report the week before most of the time, 3 to 5, maybe 7 days beforehand. You need all that data broken down before you start your scouting report. So you need to start 2 weeks ahead of time, start sending games to assist. That way you get all that data done as you start watching film. Once we get into this playlist right here, so this will show a little bit of our game from last year. So right here, it's a ball to ball pass. They also were really good about switching screens. This isn't even really a screen. Our number 42 for us is kind of cutting through here, but he saw this, anticipated, and got a quick steal right here. He loved to do this. So he's really good about stealing ball to ball passes. So we've got to be ready for that. So you can go through, and with that much data, like, you have a lot of steals here. So you can kind of figure out different tendencies he has. Does he really like to cheat up the line really hard? If so, you can just give a ball fake real quick, and then you backdoor hard and see if you can get an easy layup. Is a good way to counter that. So trying to figure out different tendencies on kids of how they're actually making their plays can hopefully, when you get to game time, help you get a W. Thanks again, guys and gals, for tuning in to my Hello Chalk Talk. Andrew Broders, assistant at Waverly High School. Everyone have a good one. Hope you learned something.